don't forget to subscribe and like right now so you don't forget, guys. Also, please hit that notification bell if you would like notifications. So right now we are going to be talking about the Kelsey Berreth case, which this is part 5. So we know that in Teller County right now, Patrick Frazee will be most likely seeing his, outcome pretty soon. We are expecting sometime this week to hear closing statements. So we're moving pretty quick. We're ahead of time according to what we're hearing on the news and the media on this case. So let's do a brief recap. So Patrick Frazee is accused of taking his girlfriend Kelsey Berreth and bludgeoning her on Thanksgiving Day. So that's November 22nd of 2018. We are just a few days away from the 22nd of November of 2019. So I think that's why they're trying to close this out pretty quick. That would make sense to me. She was last seen shopping for Thanksgiving items and for the baby at Safeway in Woodland Park, Colorado. And this is approximately around noon. This is the last known public footage of Kelsey Berreth alive. So Kelsey Berreth returns home from Safeway, where we hear she had left cinnamon buns out, so she had purchased those and her poinsettias. They were all sitting on the counter in the kitchen, is what we heard by, leaked information. She also exchanged her daughter with Patrick Frazee, and Patrick Frazee took the baby to Walmart. So according to what we know through testimonies and affidavits, including witness statements and surveillance camera, Kelsey Berreth was last seen going into her townhouse, but she's never seen coming out again. Now, I want to remind you guys, if you don't know the story, refer to my older videos because I'm probably going to cut it right here. So we're going to go straight to the court of what's happening in trial. So we have part 1, 2, 3, and 4 of that. Right now we're working on 5. And we're going to be talking about the inmate that says that he has approximately 17 letters handwritten from Patrick Frazee to a man named Jacob Bentley. Now, as you guys know, Patrick Frazee was arrested on December 21st for suspicion to commit homicide. So a quick cap on Kelsey Berreth. Kelsey Berreth had a baby with Patrick Frazee. She moved to Woodland Park from, several states away to be closer to him, but they didn't live together. She bought a townhouse. So this former inmate that testified in court Friday said prosecutors asked the media not to identify him. Well, that didn't go so well, guys. So since they identified him, I'm going to use his name as well. So it's Jacob Bentley. They're saying was a former inmate, and so that we're hearing that he's out on probation right now. He summoned prosecutors in his case and offered them letters that may be true evidence that he did kill Kelsey Berreth. And the reason why I say this is because these letters pretty much back up some of the things that KK said in court. So basically it seems that this inmate is the icing on the cake and the bombshell testimony that might have just sealed jurors' idea of what really happened to Kelsey Berreth. Because, like I mentioned, Friday, November 15th of 2019, Jacob Bentley testified Frazee asked him to kill witnesses involved with this case. And that would be Lee, Crystal Lee, the nurse, her relatives, and of course, a few of his friends. And Craig Slater testified that Jacob was able to provide written letters from Patrick Frazee, allegedly. His handwriting was compared and confirmed that handwriting is very similar to Patrick Frazee and could be written by Patrick Frazee. According to a Fox News article, they say that Patrick Frazee and Jacob were housed near one another in the Teller County Jail. Now get this, guys, what was in this letter? I can't get exact details, but we are getting some ideas, and according to what I did find, the letters had notes with requests and details about finding Lee and a few other witnesses. Of course, the defense for Patrick Frazee questioned Jacob's credibility, and this is because Jacob was soon to actually take the stand for another witness similar to this case coming up for the same thing, basically. So another witness, another inmate inside Teller County, or another, I don't know if it's Teller County actually, but another inmate asked him to kill a witness, which is fine. You want to question credibility. Of course, you want to investigate. But the thing is this. Even if, let's say he made that up, how would he be able to copy Patrick Frazee's handwriting exactly? I mean, that's something prosecutors need to ask, that's for sure. So what we're learning right now is Jacob told Patrick Frazee that he was, in a prison gang. But Jacob says he was not offered anything in exchange for testimony. Beth Reed, the prosecutor in this case, said he asked for cases against him to be resolved in I guess it's one other county. But like I said, we're not supposed to even know his name. The media was asked to keep it a secret, but the loyalty of the media. And it's very hard for me to find reliable sources for the information I'm looking for on this case anyways. So let's talk a little bit more about these letters. So again, there are 17 letters that are evidence that Patrick Frazee wrote an inmate. So witnesses he asked the inmate to take care of: Crystal Lee Kinney, Michelle Stein, the friend of Crystal Lee Kinney, John Moore, which is a friend of Patrick Frazee, and as well as his wife. And again, Agent Greg Slater confirmed that the notes and locations and descriptions were all accurate in these letters. And sometimes I wonder if Patrick Frazee does this stuff on purpose, because we were able, and I realized that he had already sent threats out to Crystal Lee Kinney while he was behind bars by threatening to blame another witness in this case. He's sent multiple threats out to her, but he just seems to think he can get away with anything and everything. So is it that these letters were just another way to send a threat? One of those letters said, quote, "I would really like to see Kinney with a bullet in her head," end quote. And my question is, this is clearly, he's on trial now for murder. He's making more threats of murder. He's trying to hire and solicit again, something that Kinney says that's what he tried to do to her, is to get her to kill somebody else. So are they not able to actually press more charges against Patrick Frazee after this trial? That's what I'm wondering. So you can't add more to it, but after this trial, can Kinney press charges? I don't know. But this makes sense as to why she said she was scared. this starts to make a little bit of sense that maybe perhaps she was telling the truth on that part. It's hard to understand when the clearer thing to do in this situation was to let the police know. But we're seeing firsthand that now he's threatening and trying to kill people from behind bars. And what are they going to do about that? It's happening in front of people. There's plenty of witnesses. There's, you got this stuff going on, but what's being done about it? So maybe she knew him way better than we realized. Because he did, if he was this monster she said he was, this is what I was thinking, he would go after her and he won't give up. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, interestingly, Jacob said he considered selling those 17 letters online. But he said he hoped to get a plea bargain out of them. So here's a few more things that Patrick Frazee wrote in this letter. Quote, I know the DA helped put words in her mouth. No video, no weapon, no body, no forensics, end quote. So he's able to study enough to understand that they really don't have a lot of solid evidence against him. They do have the residue spatters on the wall. They have a little bit of DNA evidence, but there's just not enough to make it say definitely it was her. But again, he's determined he's going to get away with this. I know he will not ever let this go, and even if he was to serve time behind bars for this case, he will sit in that jailhouse and stew and plan. He will try to get revenge. And this is scary. And this is why, if they believe they have enough evidence here to convict him and he's guilty, they need to give him life. But what we're hearing, if he's convicted for manslaughter, that can be it's not many years in there at all. So it's like 2 to 6 years. Ridiculous. If he's convicted of second-degree murder, that's going to be 8 to 24 years. Ridiculous. Just ridiculous. So what I'm going to guess at this point, given the information we have, well, what we have at this time, there's a possibility he can get like 10 to 18 years for the average chance there, for lack of better words. That's not long, and it's enough time to plan tons of revenge. And this scares me for everybody that's on his list. It reminds me of Game of Thrones. What was her name? The little girl that has that list. You guys know who it is if you're a Game of Thrones person. But she stuck to that list, and she planned to carry out that list. Of course, guys, that's speculation. But, I really feel, I knew at the beginning that he would send threats to Crystal, and he would try to take her with him. I thought he would be a little bit more hard-headed than he is with his defense, his attorneys. But he seems to have taken their advice on some things. The thing I worry about is I realize what type of man he is, and he's not the type that anything will scare him from revenge at all. I mean, it's going to stay there in his mind. Hold a grudge forever, and I got a feeling I know where he gets it from, out of his parents. Now, his father just passed away about the same time or right before Kelsey Berreth went missing. And Patrick Frazie's mother has been there at his side the entire time. Okay, so I wanted to go over, before I forget, some of the forensic, evidence that they're going over in court. So according to Caitlin Rogers, the CBI forensic analyst, told the court that the blood samples that they collected from across Berreth's townhome matched her DNA. And the former police officer now specializes in blood pattern analysis, testified that the blood patterns found in her home were consistent with someone being struck multiple times and with a bat. So he said, quote, "People are not easy to kill," end quote. What he's stressing here is there's several things that they're stressing with that quote, because I hear this quote all the time. It's just he's using it here. I had trouble trying to figure out what he meant by it. That it would have took, a lot of effort to take her out, which we all know this. It's not like the movies or the TV shows. I mean, it's a lot harder than what they, make it out to be. So they're very resilient. And so the beatings, what they're saying, are nasty in that they don't really have the effect that they have on television, which I just said. But I've heard this quote so many times lately. And the way that they use it, the context that they use it in, a lot of times is kind of disappointing in how they use it. A lot of investigators across the United States. Some investigators try to use it in a way that, they might be still alive, and I couldn't find the information for some reason on this trial. It was upsetting for me. I couldn't find the information I was looking for. I wanted to see if he was using that in a context in a way that he might thought that she was still alive, or is it because of how much effort he would have to put into doing this to KB. I finally found this small article that is making it seem as he's trying to say that it would have took a lot of effort in order to take her out in that method. So what else they also found, one of the investigators testified that the bloody footprints found around Berreth's home indicated a pool of residue, and it was stepped through. And they're saying there is nothing there that tells them that this was an accidental death. I hope I'm making sense, guys. I apologize if I don't. I'm kind of having to go doing something else while I'm doing this. We all suspected that this was not an accidental act at all. And they continued. Priest told the court, quote, it's very consistent with what I expect to see in a homicide, end quote. So he made it clear to the jury that he does not believe it's an accident, and that he does believe that this was planned, premeditated, and carried out successfully. So he was asked, why was there not more residue found? And he told that court that Kenny's testimony of cleaning the crime scene would explain why a lot of it was no longer there or present. So according to them, there was so much residue in that home that she would have had to done an immaculate cleanup job, which further tells me that she was not trying to leave behind any evidence. As well cleaned that townhome was after she left. And the fact, and I keep saying this, that the residue on the fireplace, we all know that that was not able to be cleaned up completely, and obviously she does as well. It just seems to me, it's not positive, this speculation, that she felt that that's just one of the things that might get them caught versus leaving it there. But she could have. I mean, I can't prove the either or. No one can. Anyways, so the defense attorney, Ashley Porter, confirmed with Priest he hadn't seen many of the bloodstains before they had been cleaned, and that a big part of his analysis was based off of Kenny's descriptions. So, anyways, the tooth and the phone fragments. So, Rogers with the CBC was also questioned about the apparent tooth fragments authorities found in a burned area on the ranch, which further kind of shows evidence that Crystal Lee Kenny's testimony is at least that part true. The part where she says that Patrick Frazee burned Kelsey Berreth in a tote bag. So authorities did confirm that they found a burned area on the ranch, but according to what we heard through the teenagers, that they had never seen him burn anything on that property except for one time during the year they worked there. And it's consistent to the time that the nurse testified, KK, that Patrick Frazee was disposing of KB. So during Crystal Lee Kenny's testimony in court, they remind us that after the alleged takeout of KB, Frazee instructed her to take Berreth's phone and send text to Berreth's mother and boss before taking the phone as far as she could. So Twin Falls, Idaho police officer Josh Hayes testified last week that authorities found charred pieces resembling a phone in a burn pile about 500 feet away from her own home, guys. You know, can you imagine? You already did something that's horrendous, and then taking it and putting it on your own, basically on your own property. That just don't look good. So a Teller County Department of Human Services employee testified that when she talked to Frazee after Berreth's disappearance, he told her they texted for 2 days after Thanksgiving. So if prosecutors, I think if they just keep trying to remind the jurors of these type of things where he lies, especially during closing statements, and try to take the focus off the fact that, well, it's not even facts, the way that the DA is going to try to make Crystal look like a complete liar, where she is a liar, but only, it's strange the way she does it. She does it if she thinks she can get away with it. Otherwise, she is quick to fess up. Whereas Patrick Frazee will lie to your face no matter what the consequences are. Now, before I forget, because I forgot last video, I wanted to go over the charges that Frazee is facing right now. So there's 8 charges, including first-degree murder, tampering with a deceased body, and solicitation. While he pleaded not guilty to those charges, Kenny took a plea deal, of course, pleading guilty to tampering with a tampering charge and agreeing to testify at Frazee's trial. So that's what's happening now. So opening statement started November 1st. Prosecutor called Patrick Frazee calculated manipulator, but the defense says the facts do not make sense. And on day 2, November 4th of 2019, Patrick Frazee trial, the family police describe suspicions after Kelsey Berreth's disappearance. So her mother, her brother, friends, they all kind of give their account of what happened during that time in between November, I guess it would be more like November 21st through probably through the time Patrick Frazee was arrested. Sorry, I couldn't spit that out. So day 3, November 5th of 2019, Patrick Frazee, the defense questions the timeline, and the lack of some evidence such as the black tote bag, etc. and so on. It's really day 4 that things start to really get to the nitty gritty, and that is November 6, 2019. And Crystal Lee Kinney, she tells the court about what she's seen, allegedly, and what she did for Patrick Frazee, because she was told exactly what to do, and she did that. She showed the court what she seen, what she did, and so she just did a basically recounts of the day she cleaned up that townhome, trying to paint that image for the jurors. And hopefully the jurors will stick with they don't lose, the fact that Crystal is the monster, but Patrick Frazee is the bigger monster in this trial. He is the one that was the final reason that Kelsey Berreth is no longer here. Crystal Lee Kinney might have not did the right thing, but ultimately, as far as we can tell by what we know right now, she is not the reason that Kelsey Berreth is not here physically. That is Patrick Frazee. It is all him. And that's according to her account. And, and some of the evidence does back that up. I mean, you have several witnesses that took the stand, and that includes those 2 teenage boys that Patrick Frazee hired as farmhands. They just further confirmed everything she said. I mean, there are multiple witnesses that are able to say, yes, we confirm we found fire where fire was burned on his property. We found a fragmented tooth that I wonder, I guess I didn't realize that fragmented tooth at that time was, burnt. So I was wondering why they couldn't get more out of it. If they could have just got just the smallest piece of proteins out of that tooth of some type, they could have multiplied that. I forget what that testing's called. And that way they would have been able to get a DNA testing. And I guess they might have done that test, but I haven't heard. Okay, guys, so I'm running out of time here. So on day 5, they kind of asked Kinney, why didn't she notify anybody instead of, continuing to plot with Frazee about, the solicitation on KB's life. So on day 6, Patrick Frazee's friend testifies. We'll go over that probably the next video. But they also have surveillance footage of both Crystal Lee Kinney and Patrick Frazee at the Conoco after allegedly KB is gone. Now, guys, I am going to cover details, but I'm just waiting until after this trial so I can put it together better. Now, a cadaver dog did get a hit at the Nash Ranch where KK said Patrick Frazee stored KB's remains after, they moved her from the townhome. They had pictures and everything of, the area that they supposedly had her body. And there was wet marks and everything else there. Like I mentioned, guys, this is a brief summary, but when this case is over, I'm going to do an amazing detail on this case. Now, what they're saying is that he said that the investigator was not able to confirm whether or not that was decomposition in the haystack because he had never searched a haystack with that canine. But I am about to go over quite a few details, probably part 6, which I will work on today. So be ready for that. So it's going to be a little bit different from this. This is kind of like talking about what's happened lately And then we're going to kind of fall backwards on this next video, and we're going to go over, it's probably, oh my goodness, it might end up making part 7, 8, 9 because there's so much in there. So it's going to go over everything that was said and done in court that they did cover. So I'm going ahead and close this one out right here. And because I hit my max, and then I'm going to charge my phone because it's 13%. I've been working on this since, no kidding, 9 o'clock this morning, getting all this information together. So this video is not, it's basically just kind of talking about the witness a little bit, what I feel about the case and what other people feel about the case, and kind of what we're going to be heading toward on the next pieces that are coming up. Want to say thank you so much for watching, guys. Love you guys. I sure hope, you know, today is closing, might be closing statements. We don't know. I've been waiting all day to hear. And that's why I really kind of didn't want to put out the videos I'm putting up next. All right, guys. See you guys soon.